Good afternoon. This is Ashley Tusignot, Senior Product Manager for Secure 9000. We're here today to take you through the Ilustra Insight and Secure 9000 integration for an intelligent, frictionless access control solution. I'm here today with Rick Foke, Director of Access Control, and also Ross White, Senior Product Manager for the Illustra brand. Just to let everybody know, this is in listen-only mode, so we can record this session. If you do have questions, and we hope you do, please add them into the question box and we will take them throughout the webinar. Rick, I'm going to pass things along to you.
Great, thanks, Ashley. And yeah, welcome everyone. We're very excited to launch our first intelligent frictionless access control solution for Secure 9000. I have with me Ross, who will be adding some color and some expertise on the camera side of things, as I'm more of an access control guy, right? So it's a nice team effort here. So yeah, first to start off, just to set the playing field here, at Tyco, that includes Software House, American Dynamics, Exact. We have our four strategic pillars that we're following in our product development regime here. And as you can see, automation is one of those four pillars, and that's where this Illustra Insight product fits. Okay, we're using artificial intelligence, deep learning algorithms to help provide a more frictionless experience at the door, using a facial recognition solution here. Now, the other pillars are, very strong and active in our product development process as well. The whole idea of unification. Cybersecurity is table stakes these days, and we are all in on that. And of course, cloud, moving to the cloud, taking advantage of cloud's elasticity is something we're working on as well. But yeah, this presentation here mainly looks at the automation pillar and how we're applying that to the access control environment. So Ross, what is artificial intelligence actually?
Yeah, basically the concept of the artificial intelligence is to try to take off some of the workload from people. We're really just kind of shifting some of that thought process and making it more automatic and removing some of the need for personal interaction, but through automation. So that's pretty much what that is. And we'll go to the next slide here, and we'll kind of dig into what we're offering or what we're using this for. But Rick had talked about the pillars there, and looking at the automation pillar, there's certainly different aspects in there, and one of those is access control. I mean, so we've got some others that are making this total offering of the Tyco AI, and that you've gotten alerts and intelligent search and various integrations for automation and privacy, search analysis, things like that. So, but what we're really focused on here today is using that Tyco AI for access control, in particular with the Insight product. So next slide there. So the Tyco AI really provides a suite of capabilities, different features that can be used with. The primary one here that we'll be talking about today is that access control aspect of it with facial recognition, but there are other possibilities as well. And then what we're looking at on this slide is talking about some object identification and classification, and that goes into some of the recognition of people that's maybe not face related, so things like clothing and objects they're carrying and things like that. In total, basically the idea here with this possibility is using it to narrow down forensic searching. So the ability to whether it's live or through forensic searching, to re-identify someone, whether they've been there in the past on recorded video, or whether they are you know, live. You want to track them across different cameras when they move from zone to zone, or combine those two concepts and forensically search for someone across multiple cameras to see where they've been in the building in the past, and maybe what times or dates that they've been there, or maybe you thought maybe was scoping out a scene before a crime or something like that. So there's a lot of capabilities there, and basically trying to lessen the burden on the users, taking on some of those capabilities. Certainly, you know, it would be a pain to watch hours or weeks of video trying to locate this data, or just missing it because of that impediment of taking all that time to do manually. So what we're doing is really helping out our users through the automation of that process. Next. And here's an example of, you know, someone that was a person of interest, and you may want to go back and search. You may not only want to search across other cameras to see where they've been in that building, but to go back to see if they've been there before, or had they maybe he stole something and you wanted to see if he'd stolen something before, or track, you know, the pattern through the building or something like that. So that's a very usable use case, I think.
Right.
Here, one of the other possibilities, you know, especially during this, you know, kind of global environment that we're dealing with right now with COVID, is you know, the ability to count folks, or to detect groups of people or crowds, and occupancy detection and counting. So the ability to detect and count the number of people in an area is of great use. Certainly detecting whether they're, you know, within a certain distance of each other and things is on the roadmap to come as well. There's some of the analytics out there moving in that direction, but you know, certainly just the ability to count and do occupancy detection is a big ask right now as well. But the ability to forensically do this as well is going to be a capability going forward too.
So yeah, thanks, Ross. I mean, sets the stage. The Tyco AI suite, you know, is developed by the same team. You know, a lot of the, you know, underpinnings are very similar, but when you get into access control applications, now we're talking a different set of user requirements. Okay, on the positive side, you know, compared to video surveillance algorithms, access control is a cooperative situation. You're not going to have somebody, you know, turning their head to not get recognized because they want to get through the door. You want to get recognized as quickly as they can and keep moving, right? So it is a nicer situation versus, you know, picking people out of crowds or counting or that sort of thing. But on the other side, though, the bar is raised high for performance in access control. Okay, these users that use the system, they need immediate feedback. They need to, you know, not be, you know, stopped or paused. You know, you can see on some facial recognition systems, like to the right here, some competitive systems, you have to stop. You have to like look and get your face close and get recognized, which, you know, slows things down. So you need immediate user feedback. You need speed. You need to really, you know, keep traffic moving in these situations. You also need anti-spoofing. You know, just like you've heard about cloned cards, you know, being around in access control. Well, there's cloned faces. You know, people have tried, you know, printed out faces of other people, held them up, and, you know, in some cases the systems weren't able to detect that wasn't a live human there, and they would let the wrong person in. So you have to have a very rigorous anti-spoofing algorithm built into your unit. And then what really rounds out the system is this whole idea of enrollment integration, where you need to make sure that the access control facial solution acts throughout the whole system. You know, you enroll once, it gets templates distributed down to all the units. It allows you to delete people, add people effectively, and all that template distribution gets handled in the background. It has to be a very easy enrollment experience for the operator. So that's what makes the access control use case a little different than the standard video surveillance algorithms. But once you have that going, there's a lot of extra enhanced functions we can add. Okay, so we've talked about the improved flow of users with this solution. Again, the whole idea of frictionless, okay, that's maybe an overused word these days, but it does apply here. Our intent is to have the person not have to break stride as they approach the door. Okay, they're not fishing around for a card or even getting their phone out and going through something on the screen there from mobile credential. You're just walking up, looking at the unit, and you're good to go. That's the intent here. Now, beyond that, how about an intercom feature where if you can't get in, you want to start a session, back to a workstation or a guard somewhere. Okay, that's being built into the solution. How about anti-tailgating, where if you look at the picture on the right, okay, the system is recognized in two persons, right, in green, but there's a third person lurking right behind them that's not recognized. So should I open the door or not? Do I want to really be restrictive on tailgating or not? Okay, that's possible now with this type of solution. And then you can even get into things like emotion measurement, whether it's a collective emotion measurement of the whole building, let's say, like, hey, we just had a town hall meeting and people are smiling more. I don't know, you could do things like that, or you could even do person by person, where you might want to detect the fact that somebody is not, very happy. In fact, they're in a rage, and you might need to, mark them as a person of interest. Okay, and keep track of them. Ross mentioned counting. Okay, that can be done, again with this solution, and even things like authentication with context. The idea of, okay, I've maybe like been verified once already in the system, so subsequent authentication is even faster because I know the odds are it's that same person that I saw just before. So it's a very exciting roadmap that Ross and I are working on to, expand, the whole solution here. Just want to pause for a little market information in case you're interested. Facial recognition has been in the news a lot the last few years, right? It's one of those up and coming technologies. Traditionally, though, fingerprint has been the biometric standard, right, for biometric readers. And in fact, there's still 90% of all unit sales today for access control biometrics, right? But facial recognition units, being just 8% now, are growing, over 30% a year. So if you look at the numbers, okay, this is, market revenue for the access control only application. Facial recognition is going to more than double its market size in the next 4 years. So, truly it's a growing field. And one of the reasons I think it's growing is because we're, in a lot of cases, tagging along to the overall consumer market for facial recognition, which is estimated, to be huge. $5 billion according to one estimate. I've seen other estimates of, even, $6 or $7 billion. And that's including the banking industries, the consumer electronics industries. All that added up gives you a huge market for facial recognition. So that's great because it, gives us a nice ecosystem to work with, other tools, other applications we can use in ours. Okay, you also see the other bios here. Finger vein, that's growing. Iris, it's still, fairly popular. Okay, but those tend to be a little more pricey, and they do require you to pause, at least in most of the units. So yeah, that's kind of why we're going after this market. You know, it's a great customer experience. You know, it's a great occupant experience to get through their areas quicker. In fact, one of the first applications we have are for turnstiles. You know, by nature, those are designed to move people fast, right? They're called speed gates. You know, like that's, you know, kind of self-evident. And you know, it's great to use facial there to help improve the traffic flow. You know, it's also touchless, right? That's also a very popular, you know, access control approach these days. You know, need for cards, no need to touch anything. You just kind of walk up, and if you do have automatic door openers, that's even better, right? There's strictly no touching in the whole process there. You know, compared to 10 years ago, the accuracy rates are very high now. You know, 99% and higher is what we're seeing in our testing. And you know, it's here. You know, it's no longer a science project. And one thing to point out, you know, this isn't a third party that we're bolting on to Secure and trying to arrange support between two different groups, two different companies. This is all, you know, designed, built, provided, serviced, you know, by Tyco. Okay. In this case, it's between a few different brands, right? We have the Software House brand and we have the Ilustra brand, but we're still, you know, one team, one company, you know, one company responsible for your solution, which, you know, to me, that matters. So I'm going to pause here and play a little video. Yeah, make sure this comes up here to kind of introduce the Insight solution. And this is actually getting it from YouTube, so sorry for the little delay here. I guess it's a long video,
So Rick, maybe take a question while we're waiting.
huh? Sure. Good good point, Ashley.
So one of the questions that came in is, can this be used in fire alarm applications such as acting as smoke detector or flame detector?
Oh, okay. That's a good point. That's sort of a separate analytic. Yeah, Ross, any?
Yeah, it isn't currently really designed for that. In fact, detect who was leaving the building, not entering, but leaving the building after a fire alarm, so that they could do kind of a comparison about who had entered and who had left. But you know, there's some design issues with that. Primarily, you know, if there's any smoke or something obscuring faces, or people ducking or not presenting their faces because they're exiting, or an alert or alarm state or something like that, that could cause some issues. And there could be, you know, when you're just trying to enter a building, is kind of a different aspect from the safety concerns, or, you know, there's probably some building regulations that would need to be addressed with that, with various fire regulatory agencies, state by state, on what they consider usable for that. So I do not recommend it being used in that format until that's been vetted out by various legal folks and fully tested, just because it's more of a safety issue rather than an access control issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm ready here. Let me try to play the video. Okay. Let me go back to the slides here, but yeah, great video, huh? Just a nice quick intro to show you the main features and how it's used. Okay, so let's dive into some of the details of the product. Okay, and again, keep those questions coming. We'll pause after a few minutes to answer them. But the first thing you should know is that this is not a camera slapped on a wall and told to do facial recognition, right? This is a purpose-built piece of hardware for access control, which is very unique in the market. It's a two-piece design so that you see the camera sensor or the satellite module on the unsecure side, but then on the secure side of the area is where the Ethernet connection is, okay? And that by design is, tremendous for cybersecurity mitigation. Okay, that little connector between the camera module and the control unit is just, a data feed, video, voice going back and forth in a encrypted proprietary format. Okay, it also has twin cameras. Okay, we have infrared and optical, and that allows us to do the liveness detection, to render a 3D image of the people in the frame to make sure they are in fact living. Okay, we have the intercom built in. We have great feedback on the unit, voice and LEDs. Okay, again, for that user experience, it's not just a camera on the wall. If it's a camera on the wall, how do you know you're getting in until you go up to the door and it won't open? Then behind the scenes, it is that Tyco AI suite that Ross mentioned before. In this case, would be the facial recognition algorithm applied to it. Okay. If you look at the architecture, how it fits into your existing or new Secure system, on the right here is your standard setup, right? You have your Secure 9000 server, you have your nice iStar, maybe your iStar Edge G2 that just launched, right? Nice PoE, cyber resilient controller. And you have your standard, door accessories, your door switch, your Rex, your lock, that's all same. The satellite camera module is basically your reader in this case. Okay, this gets mounted a little bit higher than a reader. It's about 5 feet, I believe, is the standard recommended height for it. So you get a little better angle of view.
62 inches. 62 inches, Rick.
Okay, I was close. 5'2", right? Okay, so yeah, then there's that data cable, and this is where you have to, be careful a little bit. It's a 30-foot maximum run. It's a Cat6 shielded cable that goes back to your control unit. Okay, which is, probably close by the door. Okay, because that's where the satellite camera module is. And then you have a facial server doing the Tyco AI algorithms. Okay, so this is the part you're adding on for the facial, and you can add this on to any iStar, whether it be an Edge G2, a Pro. We're basically using the Smart ID card format, 128-bit, and all the iStars are able to support that. So when the person is recognized, okay, when a person is seen in the frame, the control unit renders the template, and it goes over to the facial server for the match, and it gets back the answer, and if the answer is yes, that person is authenticated, then you have your standard weekend or OSTP signal back into your iStar. Okay, so it is designed for standard access control applications. Of course, today we're talking about Secure, but it is a weekend, so it's pretty open in that respect. And as far as scalability, you see the notes down here. This local hardware set is 1-to-1, one camera module to one control unit, and then the facial server can handle up to 4 cameras initially. Okay, and then within the next probably 2 months or less, we'll be able to support 16 cameras on one facial server. And that's just a matter of testing. Software House, we make sure that we don't put details on data sheets unless we fully test that solution. So we just haven't gotten, the 16 units in our access control test lab, fully set up with, 100,000 records and put through its paces yet. It will support 16 cameras with different algorithms, but just not, to our access control QA people's test regime yet. So yeah, Ross, any comments on the architecture?
Nope. You've hit all the points there. Certainly, there's some capabilities that may come in the future for the multi-factor authentication there. If someone wants to use something like a card reader in conjunction with it, or QKeyPad or something like that. But yeah, you got all the points down there.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's keep going then. If you look at the camera module specifically, you'll see the the two lens solution there, right? Infrared and optical. One thing here is kind of nice is it is an actual regular camera as well. It's a 2 megapixel fixed IP camera. So this can become part of your video edge or exact video surveillance system as one more camera in the surveillance world. Okay. It has nice backlight compensation. If you put it into an area where you're getting a lot of backlight from windows or whatever, it'll compensate for that. Although you really do have to look at the physical mounting and make sure that you have a nice traffic flow approaching it, for best performance. Then for the access control use case, you see this light ring, this LED light ring around the perimeter here, and that is designed to mimic a reader, okay, to give you a nice, visual feedback of your access control operation. And then we have the speaker and mic built in. In the first rev, it'll give you a nice audible announcement, okay, as it authenticates a person. And on the roadmap is the idea of doing that whole intercom two-way voice over IP deal back to a secure workstation. Okay, here's some examples of how those colors work. It's a multicolor LED ring. So we start off with white as it's detecting motion, somebody's approaching, and then if we get a known individual seen, then it becomes blue for about a second. And then the access control panel takes over, and it'll give you whatever's been programmed in the panel. So normally it's a solid green if it's an access grant, or a solid red or a flashing red, depending on what you select for access denied. And then if it is an unknown individual, after it turns white, it'll turn like this, what is that, like a yellowy orange amber color. Okay, so there are some nice user feedback items here, and again, you can customize it from the access control panel. If you have OSTP, when that comes out, again, very soon, you'll be able to do that custom LED template and apply it to the panel and do all sorts of fancy LED patterns. But in most cases, a solid green, a solid red is pretty good, right? That's pretty intuitive. Now here's the control unit behind the scenes. This is a unit. The board is about the same size as an IP ACM board, if you're familiar with those boards. Hopefully you are, if you're a secure champion, right? And this is where the network connects. The network connection is a full gigabit network. In fact, it uses and requires power over Ethernet. At this point, there's no local 12 or 24 volt DC feed. That is on our next spin of the board. So you need to do a PoE plus, which that's the latest standard, which gives you up to 60 watts on a segment. This board itself takes about 40. Okay, so just make sure you have a midspan or a single port injector in your design, okay, for this unit. And we mentioned that proprietary protocol between the camera sensor and the control unit here. Then the onboard weekend, right? You have a separate connector for weekend. It's right here. See my mouse? And then the OSTP connection is right above it. And again, the OSTP is not out quite just yet. We're just finishing up the firmware in the unit so that we do the full secure channel key exchange, which is mandatory these days for most projects. If customers use OSTP, well, they're going to want to use secure channel with that 128-bit encryption. Okay. Then moving on to the third part of the solution is the Tyco AI server. And to set it up, to configure it, there's a nice quick web browser. Okay, this is the server that handles up to 16 cameras that will give you the less than 1 second recognition time with a full database of 100,000 faces. And I think I mentioned this quickly in a previous slide, but it's not just one face at a time. Okay, the camera will be able to detect, we're actually testing up to 10, although I think that's kind of overkill. It will detect multiple faces at the same time, and as it authenticates, the control unit will then spit out the weekends or the OSTP card numbers as they get detected. So they will, in that case, help for traffic flow. So you can see the setup screens here. It's a nice intuitive web browser. You can set the cameras up, you can set the IP address, apply the license, watch the video stream, for troubleshooting. You can also enroll people right on this interface here, although, when you have secure integration, secure is going to win. So when you start the secure driver up, it's going to, wipe out local and, put in what it thinks is the, official database of personnel. So just use that enrollment on the Tyco AI server just for testing, just for kind of setting up and making sure the thing works. Okay, Ashley, you want to pause? We can answer a few questions.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit of them coming in. So the first one is a couple questions in one. Will it work on any access control system? And will it let you know if you're wearing your mask or warn you to put your mask on?
Okay, well, the first part of it, will it work on any access control system? I'm not sure why that question's even being asked, right? I mean, why wouldn't one use here? But yeah, it's a weekend. So, and there's other options for the weekend output. I believe there's a 32 and a 26-bit, you can configure it as.
There are some selections for the bit on it in the interface, the GUI that you configure it in. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. But the bigger thing to me is the enrollment. Not having an enrollment through the access control system would be, not too good. It'd be kind of clunky. You have to enroll on that Tyco AI server until that third-party access control system manufacturer does some enrollment integration work themselves. We do have a, web services integration path. We haven't approached any other systems yet. We probably will. It's a great unit. It can be used for other systems as well.
Okay.
The second half on the face mask detection. Okay. Yeah, Ross, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So currently mask detection, that when you start adding masks, it's quite iffy. No matter who's out there on the market. Some of them right now are starting to say that they can detect faces with masks and so forth. What they often don't tell you is how dramatically that can decrease accuracy. We're very concerned with false positives. We want to keep people out that are supposed to be kept out, and so we demand a very high accuracy. So we do offer, Tyco AI offers a mask detection which can tell your VMS if someone is wearing a mask, or not, but that is not the same thing as doing facial recognition with a mask on. You're bring up multiple points that the facial recognition algorithm and models are using to determine who that is. So it makes it much more difficult. There's a lot of folks out there that right now that are looking for that, but there's no magic bullet at this point. Things are, algorithms out there are improving all the time. Right now, you have to understand that there's going to be a much lower accuracy because of that. I think some of the best on the market are only hitting something like 70% or so with a mask on, and that's just it's not good enough to us to put that out there. So just that's kind of where the technology is at right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a couple more? Can we take a couple more?
Yeah, I can do one or two more. We gotta keep going here. It's 1:37 already Eastern time, so.
Okay. What type of power does the Illustra control unit need?
Yeah, that would be that PoE++, power over Ethernet, right? It takes 40 watts, so you'd have to use, one of the 60-watt injectors. Okay, in fact, we have one in our price book in case you need to just get one.
Okay. And do sunglasses, fake eyelashes, other accessories affect the accuracy?
Yeah, Ross, you want to take that one? I mean, basically, it will. Sunglasses, I believe, are okay still, though.
So sunglasses, it still does pretty good with. You're not covering them up as much as the base as say a face mask. If there are concerns about that, often adding more enrollment images with and without glasses often improves that accuracy.
Okay, let's keep going. Okay, we covered the facial server, and now let's do a few slides on the secure integration. It's actually pretty similar to your tried and true Secure. There's really no new screens here per se. What we're doing is we're using the standard personnel editor to capture portraits for use by facial. So you see here the screen where you have up to 5. In fact, we do recommend 5 different angled portraits for best performance. Straight ahead, looking up and down and right and left. And you see there's a new column here for facial. That means that this is being used as a facial enrollment image. And that's about it. You assign the portraits, you assign this smart ID, and we're actually putting in a little button here to just, randomized, create one for you. And that's it. Behind the scenes, the driver then does its work, and it sends images down for facial rendering, and then sends down the template to all of your Tyco AI servers. Okay, so that's it from a enrollment point of view. Okay, all within the cardholder admin. We are working to add this to the brand new web client that just got introduced in 2.9, by the way. It's not there yet, but want to add that to that nice new web interface that actually showed off. When was that? Last month for the 2.9 release.
Yeah.
So the other part of the integration is something that other integration partners a lot of times miss or they choose not to do, and that is the idea of hardware management. So this Tyco AI server, it appears in your hardware tree. It appears in your dynamic views. You can go into the hardware tree and look at how many faces do I have, what's the IP address, what's the firmware version. I can do a re-download of the server, and I can even discover the camera hardware. So I don't need to manually configure all these cameras because I've done them once already on the Tyco AI server in that local web page. So in the driver, we just import the cameras, sort of like a video integration, okay, where you don't have to recreate the cameras either. And then once they're in there, of course, we have all the journal logs, okay, of not just the access granted, access denied, but all the things that happen on the Tyco AI server and the cameras, all the the NOCOM activity. In fact, you can trigger events based on those. Okay, for alarming. No comm, you have the tamper switch on the door, you have video loss on that camera sensor. You even have an unrecognized person event that you can trigger. Maybe have it armed only during certain times of the day, for example. So there's a lot of management capabilities built into the driver that other partners haven't done. And then of course, once the camera images are in there, you can do swipe and show, you can have the live feed come in, you can have the portraits come in just like you used to for swipe and show. Okay, then just some of the overall benefits to really focus on here. We mentioned the artificial intelligence aspect of it. This is a product that's been trained with millions of images. Okay, we just feed it different databases, different demographics, just different databases, and we are basically setting the false accept rate down super low as a standard, and then trying to work with the false reject rate. So the false accept rate is the idea of somebody, not supposed to getting in. That's the worst case, in my opinion. And then, the false reject, it's more of a nuisance when you're supposed to be getting in, but you're not. And that's where we're, trying to get down below 1% there as well. We're getting pretty good though. I mean, right now the numbers are looking very good, and they just keep getting better as we do more database training. On previous webinars, the question came up about installation height and height of recognition, and basically we're picking up the person about 10 feet in front of the camera. So we're able to pick up short, tall, people in wheelchairs, fine. Okay, so as the person's picked up at 10 feet away, they're not breaking stride and they're able to get through the door, frictionlessly, basically. We talked about anti-spoofing, okay, the dual lens approach there. And then this last one is especially important for turnstiles. That's the idea of a flexible detection area, a region of interest. I think they start off with 3 different areas you can mask out from the overall image, because this is also a wide angle lens. It's 85 degrees. And if you have a turnstile application, think about it. You don't want 85 degrees, right? You'll be picking up people in the other lane. So you want to skinny down that field of view so that you're only looking at that one lane of traffic and operating, the turnstile based on that. So it's important to make sure that's part of your system, this idea of, customizing that field of view. Okay, here are the part numbers, okay? We talked about the hardware. Well, this comes as a kit. You get the camera module, you get the ICU. That's actually a bad acronym, right? Because ICU means iStar Configuration Utility for those of us in the Secure world. So you get the Illustra control unit. Let's call it out as it is, right? And you get the cable as one part number. Okay, the cable's included not just for convenience, but because we want you to use the nice Cat6 shielded cable, because Cat5 usually doesn't work that well. So be sure to use that cable that comes with it. Then on the software side, there's a part number per stream or per channel. Okay, that includes your facial recognition analytics enabled on the Tyco AI server. Okay, and then, just as an ordering note, just specify which server serial number you want that applied to, or a new unit. Okay. There's also part number to turn on the 9000 integration. This one is no charge, right? It's just a way of us tracking and enabling the integration on the Secure license. And then there's some accessories. We have the single port PoE injector, gives you 60 watts, and very soon we're going to be able to offer some Dell servers of the right hardware spec for that Tyco AI application. Probably going to be a large and a small, right, Ross? Like a 4-channel and a 16?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Then on the software support agreement, there is a modest SSA on each of the frictionless streams, for years 2 and beyond, just to, keep the support going, the firmware updates as we, train and further optimize the application. That's what will get you those updates. Okay, just a few more slides to round out the presentation here. Facial is great, except when local policies sometimes clash with that application, as we've seen in certain areas. The EU has been, one of the leaders in restricting different uses of facial recognition. A lot of these restrictions will apply more for the surveillance aspects of things, not for a cooperative access control application. So you have to kind of read the fine print for your jurisdiction. But we have seen some specific areas, SeaTac Airport, Chicago, Brookline near Boston, near where I'm based. They've all, done a little more drastic, local bans of facial. So you have to read the fine print though, and if it's a cooperative situation with employees opting in, a lot of times that's acceptable. Okay. That kind of leads into the whole privacy thing. That's the reason they have these policies, right? But as far as personal information, the images are only stored on the secure server, just like a badging portrait. Okay, we're not storing anything recognizable down in the Tyco AI servers. Okay, and that secure database, of course, is behind lock and key, of an SQL database. But in general, the GDPR guidelines from the European Union are actually, good practices. It recommends to display notices, before the area that the facial recognition is being used, okay, and also within the area, to make sure people are aware that's happening. The guidance allows for opt-outs. So if a new employee, for whatever reason, decides he doesn't or she doesn't want to become part of the biometric enrollment process, whether it be facial or fingerprint, you have to have a way to opt out, and maybe, I guess, have a separate door to enter. Then for data retention, one application would be if an employee leaves or a visitor is no longer active, what's the policy to delete their personal information and have the system, or manually go in there and do that. And also for the journal records, in Secure Journal, we basically don't delete anything, but we have some tools that we're working on to maybe anonymize the data, to kind of meet halfway. So just some warning there, just be aware of the different regulations in your area. Okay, I'm gonna dwell too long on this slide, but this is the first rev, and I just wanted to point out some of the considerations. We mentioned 16 cameras per server that's coming. Right now it's 4 cameras per server, 4 servers per Secure 9000. Okay, so get your first units up and going, and as you get ready to expand, we'll be there with you with the 16 cameras per server, testing done. Same with the personnel. I think we're beyond 2,000 now, actually. I think we're up to 20,000 in the lab, and 100,000 should be there before the end of the year. We're optimizing the driver. We've just done a great first release where we cut the sync time down to next to nothing. And basically, when you first enroll one by one, there's really no delays at all. It just happens in the background. When you restart things and have to re-render things, that's where you might get a little delay, but those are very minimal. Okay, OSTP is coming soon. Ross mentioned different modes. Right now, Face plus Duo Mobile is being tested, and that's working great. So if you do want a 2-factor mode for certain secure, highly secure areas, You do a face, then a mobile push to your phone to verify, and you hit the green button, and then the door opens. Okay. Standalone right now. Enterprise mass SaaS support is in progress. So those large customers that are enterprise customers need to plan for a 2.9 upgrade if they're not there already. Okay, right now the driver is a 2.8 SP2. And the driver, we are making sure that, this is Rev 1, we want the experience to be the best possible here. So we're having our L3 tech support team help out and guide you through the install, like a concierge service, right? So the driver, you won't find it on the public website just yet. For the first jobs, you go through the L3 groups, and they'll help you out and make sure you have all your ducks in a row and get ready to go. And they mentioned some roadmap items here. We're super psyched to add the tailgating, the intercom, even the idea of a QR code for visitors, like a temporary pass, that only has a certain time frame supported on it to get through the door. Okay, and then here's a list of all the Marcom deliverables that are available today. There's two websites. There's a separate Illustra Insight website that has all the specifics on the camera itself and in the specs, the cameras, quick start guide, user manual. On the software house side, we have the specific information that applies to the full system, the integration in place. And we have a link back to the other website too, just to keep them synchronized, right? New product announcements are there, FAQs, some nice images to add your own PowerPoints if you want. And the integration manual, I believe, is being posted like yesterday or today. Got a final draft all done there. And then finally, for training, we've approached it, the first phase here with videos. The Tyco Learn portal is being used to host a bunch of short modules of training here. There's some on the Illustra Insight itself, how to configure the camera, how to get it installed. Tyco AI videos, how to apply your license to back it up, how to configure the camera to the server, get that pairing done. Then this one is just getting loaded, I believe, today. This is the video on how to configure the integration. How do you set up the secure system for that smart ID? How do you install the driver? It walks you through the enrollment process, okay, which is basically a badging process, more or less. You can take a live picture or import a file if you want for that enrollment. But again, that's being uploaded as we speak on that Tyco Learn portal. So that is it. We have some time for some more questions, Ashley.
Great. Yep, we got a lot of them. Will there be an enclosure that can house both the Ilustra and an RM at the same door?
What was the question? Sorry.
Is there an
the Illustra and the
enclosure?
RM module, right? Yeah, basically, they see the architecture and there's, two separate metal boxes at the door, right? Which, well, why have two? Why not just have one that has, two boards inside it? Yeah, that's something we can take a look at. It is the same, size enclosure as the IPACM metal enclosure and the RM4. I'll have to take a look. There might be room for stand up on the door to put the RM4, which would then be your weekend interface, basically.
Okay.
Okay. Good idea.
Any plans to make the camera, the camera to control unit be more like 300 feet? Is there an issue there?
Yes, currently the reason it's limited is because it is using a proprietary raw protocol, and to extend it, and it is on the roadmap to extend to I believe it's 100 meters, which would be about 3 feet or so. But while that's on the roadmap, it requires some big changes in terms of the protocols used and how that data is passed. So it is on the roadmap for the future, though.
Okay. Is there an Illustra control unit with Cantech integration plan?
Cantech is looking at that for future, but it's not something that they are rushing right now. So.
Okay, how is the privacy of people protected? Facial characteristics of people must be stored in the facial recognition server, and it can be a concern for some users.
Yeah.
So that's where the templating comes in? Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Well, yeah, it's a template, it's a hash, it's a, what do they call it, a biometric transformation. It's a scrambled, 8K blob, basically. There's absolutely no personally identifiable characteristics of that information. And we don't have any names down there either. It's just that blob and the 128-bit smart ID, and that's it. I guess we should maybe do a document or a statement to that effect, right? Just to make sure people understand that.
That may be covered on the FAQ. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
What is the angle of view for the camera, or what is the direct approach distance in order for the camera to read properly?
The angle of view,
it has a wide field.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ross.
I was just going to say it's a very wide field of view. If you know I'd have to look at the data sheet for the specific angle. If you know that, Rick, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was 85 degrees on the
85.
The horizontal side. I'm not sure what it is on the vertical side. Yeah, it's more than what's needed in our beta sites for that.
Okay. How does the camera mount? To a single or double gang electrical box? Is there a mounting plate or mounting ring?
Yeah, the mounting, there's go ahead. I'll leave it to the camera expert.
I was going to say it has a back plate that's part of it that the camera head mounts into. There is an additional plate coming forth in the near future, specifically for some of those boxes and things like that. But we'll have additional mounts further down the line, including an angled mount and the ability to mount to, say, around some of these glass partitions, like when you have glass entryways or around the glass doors. So we've got some additional mounting options coming there, and we're also going to have the ability for turnstile mounting or a pedestal style mount as well.
Okay. When multiple people approach the door, one authorized and one not, will the door unlock?
Today, yes. I mean, we're going to just send out weekend, card numbers, for every authenticated person that we see. However, we are working on the tailgating control, and flash options are needed, what philosophy to put in there, and we're basically trying to make it as flexible as possible. Give the customer the choice whether to be very restrictive or semi-restrictive on the tailgating.
Should we prepare the Secure system to keep stereo images?
No, they're still basic images. They're high res. There's a minimum pixel count that's needed. In fact, if you do try to enroll with a image that's not suitable, you will get an alarm. So you'll be able to retake the picture or get more of a high res file or whatever. But yeah,
Okay.
it's not really a stereoscopic.
Okay. Is recognition impeded by weather, fog, rain, snow? Basically, can we use this outside?
So that's a good question. I'll say right now it is intended only for indoor use. There is a future plan for an outdoor model. But yeah, part of the consideration when you start putting things outside is, when you're talking about facial recognition, if you have moisture, droplets and stuff over the lens, it can affect the ability to accurately recognize those faces, and fog as well, things like that. So that is a consideration as well. Housing to be weather tight. So that is a future development for outdoor use. This release is intended for indoor use. And just while I'm already speaking here, I did put a data sheet on that. So the field of view horizontally is 85 degrees. The vertical is 63 degrees.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Maybe have time for a couple more. Will the
Okay, that's 202.
Yeah, I know we're a little bit over, but we still have quite a few people on here. Will the integration work with the site server, or is a software server setup needed?
I'll talk to the site server. It's a standard, integration driver. In fact, we just to make sure, I just ordered a site server 3, which is our latest release of the hardware for a site server. If you haven't seen that yet, nice, smaller box. We ordered one, for the test lab, just to, a different test lab for the integration driver. So I'm sure it'll work. It'll be enabled for it. Yeah, for those smaller sites, that'd be great. Up to, 32 or 64 readers with a site server.
Mm-hmm. Does the unit have WDR, and are there any issues with mounting the unit in certain areas for operability, such as a sunlit front area?
Sorry, I didn't quite make that out at the end.
The wide dynamic range, and if mounted in the area with sunlight, what are the implications?
Yeah.
Back station, so it should be okay, right?
I don't know if you would consider it an actual wide dynamic range, but the dynamic range of this model, this release, until there's further hardware developments, is not 69 dB. So it's a little narrower than normal, but it does have some backlight compensation ability, so as well as IR illumination.
What algorithm is used for the facial recognition? Is it proprietary?
Yes. There's a lot of stuff on the market that is off the shelf or open source. It's clear that we want to point out really that we started with some off the shelf algorithms, but we highly honed those and made them proprietary to our use. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the last question here, can you explain the facial recognition server in a little more detail? What to use, Tyco AI server, etc.
Not sure I quite understand the details you're looking for. We have some minimum specs on 4 and 16 channel systems. With Secure right now, we're only supporting the 4 channel, and we'll work towards adding the ability to go up to 16 channels. Certainly, you can use more than one AI server. With the Insight, you're primarily talking about using the facial recognition AI. There are other AIs that can be used in conjunction with some of the VMSs like ExactVision and Victor Video Edge for various object classification or mask detection, things like that. So it really kind of depends on the use. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, the hardware has a nice, strong GPU or multiple GPUs in there with
Right.
RAM and nice i9 or what's the other one on the 16? It's a Xeon something or other.
Yeah. So there are some specs out there. We are planning to offer some hardware as well.
Oops. I think our sound cut out a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, I
But
guess that ends the period.
Yeah. Just to note, this session was recorded and linked to anybody who registered. I know there was a few of you who asked about a link to the presentation or to the download of this viewing. That will be available shortly and sent to you. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Ross.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to working with you on your Illustra Insight installs.
Yep, thank you.